Episode 1 of Peacemaker begins with our hero fully recovered. Or recovered enough to leave the hospital anyway. After promising the janitor that he's going to level out the amount of people he kills, targeting more white people in the future, Peacemaker gets a taxi back home. On his way out though, one of the nurses messages someone called Clemson Mern, telling him that Peacemaker is on the way. He, in turn, messages Leota while she's with her girlfriend Kia, cryptically telling the woman that the dove's headed to the coop. This is, of course, directly referencing Peacemaker who returns to his run-down trailer. The place is a mess, and after checking his messages from Vigilante, let his guard down temporarily. He's surrounded by several characters holding guns to him, including Leota. After only serving a fraction of his prison sentence, Peacemaker still has time to serve. Instead of forcing him behind bars though, he's encouraged to work for Clemson Mern. Specifically, working on Project Butterfly. After the starfish gig, Peacemaker is convinced that he's going to fight a giant moth and implores Mern to get him a jetpack. In reality though, he's actually doing contract work. Butterfly is just a code word for killing a series of different targets. If he refuses? Well, he still has that bomb in his neck and could well be detonated. Or he could be thrown back in prison. So it's not much of a choice really. Agreeing to meet up later that night, Peacemaker heads off to visit his dad, Augie Smith. There's clearly no love lost between them, and he's quick to show his son to his pet eagle, called Eagly. Wrapping his wings around Peacemaker, this sweet moment is interrupted by his dad walking away. When they sit and eat together, they start talking about the group and Project Starfish. When Augie finds out that Ratcatcher was the one who shot him, Augie is disgusted. He's quick to remind Peacemaker that he's a disappointment, despite showing off his closet full of new uniforms and different helmets. Meanwhile, the rest of the group gets set up in their new Black Ops HQ, but with leaky pipes, a run-down locale and even a piano in the room, it's less than ideal. They're convinced that Amanda Waller is messing with them, and when Peacemaker shows up in full costume that night, that's only compounded further. Peacemaker takes everything seriously though, and he learns that his first target is a US senator. Unfortunately, he's also alone and he struggles to connect with any of the team. One of those includes Emilia, who's just trying to enjoy a beer without getting chatted up by men later that evening. Between some idiots in the bar and Peacemaker himself, she eventually leaves. Back home, Leota updates Amanda on what's going on. It's here we learn that she's actually Amanda's daughter, and with a journal in hand, she's tasked with keeping it in his apartment somewhere. Peacemaker, meanwhile, turns his attention to a quiet blonde sitting in the corner, whom he ends up sleeping with. The thing is, she's not an ordinary woman, and while they're both in their underwear, she attacks him with a knife. It turns out she's a metahuman with crazy strength. Their fight spills from the apartment outside, where Peacemaker uses his helmet as a weapon, sending a massive shockwave out that completely liquefies the woman, with thin remnants of her organs left on the floor. Episode 2 of Peacemaker starts with Emilia receiving a call from Peacemaker, updating her on what happened in the parking lot. Emilia implores him to grab his gear and leave, while she collects up Leota and arrives at the apartment, waiting for Peacemaker to show up. He's still in the apartment, while they twiddle their thumbs in the car, as Peacemaker collects up his gear, and some of the deceased's records too. Peacemaker is spotted, while looking out the window by the arriving officers, prompting him to hurry and evade the police as they start looking through the apartments, one by one. There's a recurring joke involving Peacemaker's gear falling on the floor, along with a lover's tiff caused by Peacemaker's taste of music, but through all of this, Peacemaker makes it to the ground floor, hopping between balconies. It's not pretty, but Peacemaker does make it to the ground in one piece, minus an injured shoulder, and gets away thanks to Emilia jumping in and lending a helping hand. With the police firing off a barrage of bullets their way, our gang managed to hightail it to safety. Unfortunately, John, still in HQ, changes the car registration, so it's registered to Peacemaker's father in a blind panic. That's obviously less than ideal, and Augie's not exactly happy when officers Fitzgibbon and Song show up at his door. Back at base, Mern is not happy either when he finds out what's happened with Peacemaker. Our protagonist's nonchalance around leaving the butterfly dossier in a rando's house is met with shouts and anger as he demands Peacemaker take this seriously. With witnesses at the scene too, Myrn tasks Leota with trying to keep them all quiet with bribes. Those that are left look at Peacemaker with disdain, quick to remind him how reckless he is. Back home, Peacemaker is down in the dumps. He receives some words of advice from Vigilante, who shows up at his window and decides they should celebrate his release from prison. He's got a whole bunch of appliances out in the woods, ready to shoot. Peacemaker shows up and the pair have a blast together. While this is going on, the police appear at Augie's door again. This time though, they have an arrest warrant for him. As he's taken away, Leota reminds Kia that she's going to be working some odd hours in the future, leading the pair to start arguing. At least, it looks that way anyway. The music drowns out this scene and cuts across to Peacemaker instead. After his trigger-happy afternoon, he's in bed with Vigilante and another woman. As the pair smoke weed, Vigilante flat out refuses. Peacemaker handles the strange relic he found in the metahuman's apartment earlier on. It suddenly turns into a strange contraption. In prison, Augie is revered by a whole group of fanatics who call him the White Dragon, dropping to their knees, and with a pretty suggestive hand motion. Episode 3 of Peacemaker begins with Peacemaker telling the group about the trinket he's found in the metahuman's apartment. Vigilante happens to be hiding behind a trash can though, and he's quick to remind Peacemaker that the team are going to be as good a friend to him as he is. Vigilante is quick to point out he should befriend Leota though, especially because of the rumors about him being racist going around. Eventually Vigilante leaves, as the rest of the crew pack up their things and prepare to hit the road. En route, Peacemaker is briefed over his target, Senator Goff. He's a climate change denier, and he seems to be traveling with his family. Unfortunately, that also means Peacemaker is going to have to kill his kids, as they're not sure whether they're butterflies or not. Goff is also accompanied by a metahuman called Judo Master, who serves as his bodyguard. While setting everything up, Myrn reveals to Economos that he's got a dark past. He's also never expressed his emotions either. While the two awkwardly try to converse, Peacemaker sets up his sniper and prepares to scope out the senator's house. Emilia's with him too, but she's pretty quiet, at least until she notices the senator and his family acting strangely inside. With the group undecided over whether the family are butterflies or not, they agree to hold off until morning, when a better opportunity arises to assess the danger. While they wait, Emilia admits she got into this line of work back when she was 20. After high school she joined the CIA, and now she's living the dream working for Myrn. I's a really nice moment, but it's quickly quashed by Vigilante showing up and revealing himself. An opportune moment does eventually arise just after this, as the Goff family sit down to eat. A strange purple tongue worm protrudes from their mouths, leading Myrn to give the kill command. Only, Peacemaker freezes. With his hands shaking and unsure whether to take the shot, Vigilante instead takes over and kills all of them himself. Well, almost all of them. Judo Master shows up and stops Papa Bear from being shot, leading to a big fight to break out. Unfortunately, Peacemaker and Vigilante are both captured by the senator and brought inside. In their absence, Leota and Emilia are forced to kill the human bodyguard, whom they're not sure is actually a butterfly or not. Leota apologizes when Emilia makes the killing shot, admitting that she's never actually killed anyone before. Eventually though, the pair are joined by Myrn and break into the senator's house, determined to finish the job and take out their target. While they set to work opening up the hidden compartment they're being housed in, Senator Goff tortures Vigilante in front of Peacemaker, determined to make him talk. Unbeknownst to them, Judo Master gets in his car and hightails it away. Thankfully Economos jumps in just in time, slamming his van straight into his car and knocking it off the road. Judo Master survives though, crawling across the floor. With little other choice, Economos bashes the guy constantly with a tire iron. In the wake of all this, the door to the torture chamber explodes, courtesy of Myrn's quick thinking and special adhesive card. This gives Peacemaker enough time to grab a shotgun and shoot Goff in the face. Out of his mutilated corpse steps a large butterfly, which flies into the air. Peacemaker marvels at its form as we cut to the van outside. The computers begin blinking as a screen showing suspecting butterflies appears. They're all over the planet. Episode 4 of Peacemaker begins with Peacemaker and the gang heading back after their successful mission against the senator and his family. Judo Master is alive, as it turns out, and he's taken captive in the office where Myrn is waiting for the gang. He questions Peacemaker over his hesitance in the field, who holds his own, and claims it was only because kids were involved. For now, Peacemaker is tasked with heading out with Vigilante. After half his pinky toe was cut off, he continues to complain that he's never going to walk again. They drive up to Augie's house together, where Peacemaker breaks in, looking for his dad. While he does, a news report mentions a gorilla that's gone missing. While that's not that important this episode, it could be in the chapters to come, so it seems like a good addition to add on here. It doesn't take long before Peacemaker learns that Augie has been sent to jail and lashes out at Myrn and the others for this. That's a problem, and Myrn worries that Peacemaker will head to jail to see his dad. In order to stop that from happening, he tasks Leota with tracking him down and stopping him. After telling him the truth about switching the reg plates, Leota goes on to mention Augie's supervillain identity and how he's a white supremacist. She tries to convince Peacemaker not to see him, but it's no good. In jail, Peacemaker shows up and uses a penis analogy to try and explain their complicated relationship, but obviously it falls on deaf ears. Augie even tells Peacemaker that he loved his brother more than him, which obviously cuts deep. While he leaves with his tail between his legs, listening as Leota tries to encourage him, Vigilante shows up at the jail, getting himself arrested so he can take out Augie. Of course, he continues to peddle the pinky toe issue, while Augie himself demands the detective show up as he has information about the case. Meanwhile, Judo Master breaks free from his restraints, and after a swift kick to Ikonomo's chest, knocking him through a desk, he hurries out into the parking lot. Peacemaker follows and a fight between the two breaks out. As they hit a stalemate, Judo Master mentions how the butterflies aren't what he thinks only. Leota appears and shoots him dead. Myrn soon finds out about plan to take out Augie and lashes out at them all. Leota shrugs it off, claiming she's just making the hard choices, but if he dies, there's one less guy to help solve this case. Vigilante gets himself arrested so he can get close to Augie in prison. He manipulates the man's lackeys to fight him, knocking them out with a brutal counterattack. Augie is smart and isn't easily provoked, waiting for the guards to break this up. As they're both put on the ground, Vigilante mentions how Augie is a bad dad and immediately realizes he's linked to Peacemaker. Speaking of which, Peacemaker catches up with Amelia in the bar, where she reveals more of his past. It turns out his file confirms his brother died of mysterious circumstances which Peacemaker was allegedly involved in. While Amelia picks up Vigilante from jail, given he's free to go, Leota starts looking through the files and notices Glantai could hold a crucial clue. She rings Myrn, who reveals himself to be a butterfly in a nice little twist to end the chapter. Episode 5 of Peacemaker begins with Myrn briefing the team about the butterflies. The thing is, the whole chat is tinged with an undercurrent of tension which eventually explodes when Peacemaker confronts Ikonomos over putting his dad in jail. After reading out an overlong list of celebrities he could have put the blame on instead, Myrn jumps in and reels the topic back to the butterfly plan. He wants the team to head out and investigate Glantai. This company happened to be a distribution center for the aliens' food supply. This could well be the key to finding clues about the butterflies and exactly how widespread this situation is. While prepping their gear, Leota arrives and encourages Peacemaker to go easy on Ikonomos and not be so harsh on him all the time. Leota, though, is going through her own issues. Relationship woes with Kia continue to work at odds to her job. Leota only took this role to tie the pair over for a few months, but it's clear this is becoming a lot more involving than she anticipated. It looks like she's gearing up for a big choice between her career or partner. We shall see. Anyway, the gang rock up at Glantai and prepare to infiltrate. Leota and Peacemaker team together and go in through the front. Although Peacemaker agrees to keep things chilled, he immediately shoots the receptionist and the guards in the head. Peacemaker quickly reveals that his current helmet grants him the ability to see butterflies inside their hosts. Vigilante and Amelia head in the back and realize there are thousands of boxes for the alien food. They suddenly come to the realization that this operation is far bigger than they thought. Unfortunately, they're spotted and the butterflies mobilize, dozens of them inhuman hosts that screech and throw themselves at the pair. Remember that escaped gorilla mentioned on the TV several episodes back? Yep, that happens to be in the depths of this operation, and it's right in Peacemaker's sight. As it looks set to kill our hero, Economos jumps in with a chainsaw and slices it to bits. In prison, Augie appeals to Detective Song and Fitz. He claims Peacemaker has framed him and can prove it. After getting his fingerprints, the detectives match it up to the prints found at the scene and realize they don't match. So naturally they decide to head off and visit the eyewitnesses to find out if their alibis hold up. It doesn't take long for the bickering couple from before to confirm immediately that Peacemaker is the crook, and that means White Dragon is going to be freed. Only, another big hiccup sees that order reversed by a higher authority. Murn's mysterious contact, Casper Locke, shows at the police station and reveals that he's their new captain. He cleans up the mess left behind and challenges Song over what she's found out. Song instead turns to Fitz and together uses Song's contacts to try and gain a search warrant for Peacemaker, undermining the chain of command. Blood-soaked and high on adrenaline, Peacemaker and the gang are debriefed after their factory skirmish. As everyone heads off, Peacemaker encourages Leota to share a drink with him at his place. Once there, Leota connects with Peacemaker and encourages him to drop the tough exterior. Throwing jokes at everyone and putting them down isn't the way to go. She urges him to be more like Chris instead. It's a really touching moment and something that helps show a deeper side to his character. However, this is just a front as Leota stashes the diary in Peacemaker's trailer. When she heads back to the office, Leota grabs Peacemaker's helmet and tries it on. Marveling at the new vision, she excitedly turns toward Murn's office, wanting to tell him about what she's found, and immediately realizes he's a butterfly. As he chases her outside, the episode comes to a close. Episode 6 of Peacemaker begins with Murn chasing Leota outside. He promises not to hurt her as Amelia shows up. The thing is, she actually knew about Murn being a butterfly and decides they need to talk. Inside, Emilia admits she's known for a while about Murn, all the way back to when he took a bomb blast to the face and barely took any damage. Murn has a lot of butterfly knowledge and shares some of it now. These butterflies came to Earth because their own planet was dying. The one in Goff was actually their leader, but while things were okay for a while, he got ambitious and decided to start taking hosts from positions of power. In order to stop them, this butterfly took the body of the worst person it could find, Murn. This butterfly understands exactly what it has done, showing a lick of empathy. However, this was a necessary evil in order to stop the overarching butterfly plot. With Leota on board for now, and promising not to tell Waller too, the gang sift through security footage from the plant. They quickly realize that every 3 days a tank of raw amber is brought in, but from where? Meanwhile, Augie is released from prison. He's lusting for blood and turns his attention to killing Peacemaker. The thing is, Song is already on the case, not to kill obviously, and she prepares to launch an offensive to search Peacemaker's trailer and arrest him. When Casper Locke notices all the officers leaving, he rings Murn and tells him they have a problem. At Peacemaker's trailer, Vigilante shows up and the pair notice in awe that Goff has drawn a peace symbol. As they begin asking the butterfly yes or no questions, the police close in. Thankfully, Murn manages to get through to Vigilante, and the gang leave out the roof. Although they manage to get away, the police also find the diary Leota has stashed. Song notices eagerly up on the roof partly thanks to Peacemaker whistling for its attention, and begins checking through the woods for the pair. Unfortunately, everything goes awry. Vigilante falls out the tree, the glass jar holding Goff smashes, and the butterfly ends up inside Song. While she convulses on the floor, blood dribbling out her mouth, Vigilante and Peacemaker run for their lives. They manage to evade all the police, but as they're cornered by a solitary officer, Casper Locke shows and kills him in cold blood, saving the pair of superheroes and telling them to leave. Song is fine, of course, and she takes off, ignoring Fitz and deciding she needs to call some friends. Fitz follows her and finds Song on the work computer, clearly communicating with other butterflies. Goff does confirm that Sophie was quite fond of him and attempts to smile in one of the episode's funnier moments. However, Goff manages to bring in a whole swarm of butterflies to his cause, who all touch down in mini UFOs. With a whole bunch of butterflies at his disposal, Goff storms back into the police station where they control all of the police officers. Not only that, they also control all the prisoners too, who all leave the station at the same time. However, White Dragon's not there given he's at home with his devout followers, who help put his armor on. When Peacemaker returns to base, the truth about Goff escaping is unveiled. Myrn is shocked and confirms that the diary, the same one Leota planted in his apartment, is with their men. It's with Casper to be precise, who locked it in his desk drawer earlier in the episode. Economos chirps up, confirming that he's found where the amber oil originates from. Coverdale Ranch. If they could destroy the food source, it could wipe out all the other butterflies. It seems this could be where the cow originates from. This is their large animal, the only one on the planet that they milk for amber. Peacemaker is incredulous over the knowledge being hidden from him and scoffs at the notion of them being a team. Myrn's secret remains that way, as he tells the team they're heading out at daybreak for the ranch. As the gang prepare to mobilize, Casper Locke holds a press conference on TV, which throws all of their plans completely out the window. He reveals the truth about the aliens and also confirms that every police station right now has one mandate: find people. Episode 7 of Peacemaker turns the focus back to the past, as we see Chris and his brother Keith in their room, listening to rock music. With Augie holding bets, they're encouraged to head out and fight one another in a no-holds-barred match. With a big punch to the cheek, Chris knocks out his brother, who ends up convulsing and fitting on the floor. Frothing at the mouth, Augie jumps in and realizes Chris has killed his brother. This seems to be the origin of his father's disdain, and as Peacemaker reflects on this painful moment from his past, he struggles to hold back tears. Vigilante snaps him out of his entranced state though, as the pair collect their gear and prepare to go after Locke. Economos is with them too, and drives them to their destination. Only, they're not alone. White Dragon and his fanatics are on their trail. White Dragon smashes into the side of the truck and knocks them down. Peacemaker and the others do manage to escape though, but given they're being tracked, it doesn't take long for them all to mobilize again. Peacemaker soon realizes his helmet has a tracking device in, and he ditches it, losing White Dragon in the process. In their absence, Emilia confronts Leota about the planted diary. The thing is, Leota actually lost her job and Waller offered her this one, which inevitably sees the truth about Waller being her mum divulged too. Myrn already knew though, as it turns out, and he implores the pair to stop bickering and collect up their gear. With all of their butterfly brains connected and Locke now compromised, the whole operation is hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, Judo Master manages to escape from his restraints, having recovered from his chest wound, and stands at the convenience store, all bandaged up and eating chips. Beating down a couple of thugs and stealing a car, he takes off. Back at the apartment, Emilia and Leota manage to evade the police, who show up and find Myrn. After killing him and the butterfly inside, they're left alone to carry out this operation. Only, Judo Master suddenly enters, leading to a big fight between him and Emilia. He takes his eyes off Leota though, who manages to take him out with a taser. Back in the field, Peacemaker and Economos catch up with Vigilante, who happens to be passed out in his car. Unfortunately, he's also taken all of Peacemaker's helmets from Augie's house, and that leads White Dragon back to him. After knocking down Eagly, Augie turns his attention to Peacemaker. Knocking him down, Augie prepares to take his son out. Only, Economos shows up with a machine gun, killing all the fanatics alongside him. Vigilante pounces on Augie, short-circuiting his suit. In doing so, Peacemaker turns his attention to his father and punches him numerous times, calling him out for his hostile attitude in the past. As Augie antagonizes him, Peacemaker grabs a gun and shoots his dad in the head. It's an emotional moment, something that's thwarted slightly by a joke thrown in by Vigilante. Peacemaker worries that Eagly is dead meat and ends up praying to the Lord to save his pet, given he's the only one who understands how he feels. With Leota watching from the window, she looks in awe at the bird as eagerly reawakens and embraces Peacemaker. Leota is shocked, and she sees this as a sign. Instead of heading home, she's all in on the cow plot. With Amelia now leading the charge, she briefs the team and warns them that this isn't going to be an easy task. With Goff and the rest of the gang mobilizing at the ranch, Amelia and the motley band of misfits all join together and prepare for the final fight. As we cut across to Goff and the others, we catch a glimpse of the cow. It's even more horrific than we could ever imagine. With 6 eyes and large udders, the amber is extracted from his creature, which is being kept under. Episode 8 of Peacemaker begins this finale with Peacemaker and the gang preparing to storm the farm. Leota tries to apologize, but her words are interrupted by a bunch of fart noises, courtesy of Vigilante and Peacemaker. Eventually the gang arrive on the outskirts of the farm and prepare to kill the cow and stop the amber production. In order to progress the mission, they need to move the sonic boom helmet over to the top of the barn, so naturally, they call on Eagly to help them. He seems to be successful until he flies right past it and drops the helmet in the trees on the other side of the woods. Does Economos manage to keep his cover? The group are forced to head off and try to find it, but it's Amelia who eventually stumbles upon it. She brings them all together for the next step of this mission. After stabbing one of the butterflies and taking their clothes, Economos gets dressed up and heads inside the barn, managing to make it past the others on lookout duties. The mission here is simply to put the helmet down as low as possible, and that involves Economos acting normally and not blowing their cover. That's easier said than done though when John catches a glimpse of the large cow in the amber production. Terrified, he drops the bag and rushes outside. He's stopped by the butterfly-controlled Larry though, and forced to open up about why he really dyes his beard. What happens during the fight at the barn? This momentary distraction unfortunately sees Economos' cover blown, given the bag is found inside the barn and brought to the doorway. The group decide to strike, activating the sonic boom helmet. When all the grunts head back to the barn, Leota activates more explosions, which not only drop the butterflies back, it also causes the roof to begin caving in on the cow too. With the forces dwindled, everyone races in to fight. Unfortunately, Vigilante is knocked down while Amelia ends up shot and tumbles over, blood oozing from her mouth. Leota eventually jumps in too, racing over to her to stop the butterfly from infecting her. Leota takes everyone out en route, shooting them all with one shot each and saving Amelia. Throwing over one of Peacemaker's helmets, the human torpedo one to be precise, it's all up to her to try and save the day. As Leota heads down into the basement, she uses the human torpedo power and misses her target, Song, completely, banging into the wall and dropping to the floor in a heap. What is the real mission of the butterflies? Peacemaker, meanwhile, is led down the corridor where the cow happens to be groaning, sparks emanating around it. The 2 remaining butterflies, Detective Song and Captain Locke, want to move the cow out of there. It turns out they're not doing this for power, they actually took a vow. Song confirms that the butterflies traveled across to Earth because their own planet had become unlivable. Earth had the habitat they needed, but with no food consumption, they brought the cow over to help them all survive for the next 100 years. However, realizing that our world is messed up, with those in power valuing greed over the welfare of the planet, hurtling toward a devastating climate-changed future, the butterflies took a vow to step in and change that. They wanted to make the choices for humans in order to save humanity, no matter how many lives that cost. Myrn disapproved, believing they couldn't impose their will, which explains why he was killed. Peacemaker makes his choice and kills the butterflies, activating the human torpedo, so Leota smashes into the cow head first. Tellingly, Peacemaker doesn't kill the butterfly that drops out of Song's mouth. Does Amelia survive? What choice does Leota make? The rest of the gang reconvene outside and eventually race to the hospital, intending to save Amelia's life. Both Economos and Vigilante are taken off for treatment too, leaving Leota to quiz Peacemaker over his choice not to help the butterflies. The real reason is because he didn't want to see his group hurt anymore. Leota instead decides to take to the cameras, reporting what she's found out live across the nation. Specifically, she talks about the diary and how Peacemaker and Vigilante were working for the government under the guise of Project Butterfly, intending to take time off their sentences. Leota even incriminates her own mum, calling Waller out for fronting this and asking for an immediate investigation. How does Peacemaker Season 1 end? Meanwhile, Emilia survives and after awakening, holds Peacemaker's hand, grateful that he stood by her side the whole time. Economos leaves the hospital and heads to Belle Reve Penitentiary, a picture of the gang in hand. That butterfly we saw before? Well, it's actually with Peacemaker, and he feeds it while Eagly continues to stay by his side. However, Peacemaker is still haunted by the memory of his father. The last episode ending explained. With the recent news that Peacemaker has been renewed for a second season, HBO's latest series bows out on a high, with plenty of drama and action to boot. There's a consistent level of tension right the way through, and understanding the real mission of the butterflies and what they believe in is a nice way of rounding out this story. And there's an important message about climate change and our planet in there too, which is always nice. John Cena seems destined to play this role of Peacemaker too, although some of the jokes don't always work that well. The constant fart jokes early on in this episode, for example, bog down the flow of the dialogue. Either way though, everything bows out with a neat little amber-colored bow and sets things up nicely for the second season when it drops in the near future. Peacemaker is a show of two halves. The first 4 episodes are awkwardly contrived, full of hit-or-miss action, and armed with misfiring comedy. The second half lets loose, delivering a crazy and manic action-packed finale that leans into the wackiness of the show. Peacemaker still has the same issues here, but it's much more driven and enjoyable than those early chapters were. The story here takes place after the events of last year's Suicide Squad. If you're a little rusty about the story, the first episode does provide a handy recap of events. Our hero here is Peacemaker, arguably the least likable member of the Suicide Squad. This makes it rather puzzling over just why he's been given his own show. Either way, John Cena reprises his role as Peacemaker returns home, only to be recruited to a top-secret operation codenamed Butterfly. Well, recruited may be underselling this, given Clemson Mern, the man in charge of the operation, holds all the cards and could put Peacemaker behind bars at the drop of a hat. So Peacemaker joins the gang and soon learns that this case is far more complicated than he could have ever realized. Alongside this storyline are several other long-running subplots. Peacemaker's past and his estranged relationship with his father, Augie, is one of the more interesting dynamics at work. It's too bad that it's sidelined for much of the season though, eventually reaching an emotional climax in episode 7, only to be undermined by an ill-placed joke. And that sums up the bulk of Peacemaker. For all the good work this show does with its character angles and crazy bombastic action, and the finale is one heck of a showstopper, the jokes are incredibly hit or miss. One episode sees a recurring joke about a missing pinky toe that wasn't funny the first time, and it's not funny for the remainder of the episode. There are numerous expletives, genitalia jokes, ill-placed slapstick and contrived awkwardness that all lean into that frayboy humor that will be a blast for some, but an instant turn-off for many others. To be fair, there are a couple of long-running jokes that work, but this one is way more miss than hit. The story and later development for the characters is the real saving grace here, managing to elevate what's otherwise a below-average superhero series. Peacemaker is nowhere near as deep or wacky as Doom Patrol, nor is it as gritty and visceral as The Boys. Instead, Peacemaker exists in a weird gray area between the two, never quite standing up to the two shows, but undoubtedly likely to be compared to the two. Peacemaker is about 5 episodes too long, and when the dust settles and the final credits roll, you're unlikely to return to this one in a hurry.